All right, it's time to put it in gear. The NHL Draft is coming up, and the Utah Mammoth are front and center. What are the Mammoth going to do? We're going to talk about it all this week on Locked On Mammoth.
You are Locked On Mammoth, your daily podcast on the Utah Mammoth, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us. I'm veteran NHL voice Tom Callahan, joined by longtime team analyst Robyn Leaño, and we are the dynamic duo that's going to shepherd you through draft week coverage. Here's the NHL entry draft approaches. It's a very exciting time of year here on Locked On Mammoth. Thanks for making us your first listen each and every single day when it comes to the Utah Mammoth. We look forward to this week. We've got guests lined up. We've got in-depth features. We're going to get into a lot of the picks, the potential. Today is a little bit more of an overview show. I know that, quite frankly, Robyn, some fans just probably tuned out at the end of the regular season, and they're coming back around now because there's some excitement and some news again as the Mammoth prepare potentially to make the number 4 pick.
Yeah, and I think it's it's a really important thing because I think you're right. Maybe some people tuned out. But I know our everydayers, they stuck around, and maybe they're going to hear a lot of the same stuff that we have been talking about over the last 2.5 months or however long it's been. I feel like it's been a lifetime already because I want my hockey, but it's, but yeah, no, it's like, there's a lot to get to and a lot of things we can debate about what Utah does. But other than that too, Tom, but there's all those expectations for the draft itself, what the other teams are going to do, what the NHL is kind of reacting to it. It's a pretty big week.
So just to let you know, first and foremost, Robyn's going to get a chance to sit down with Will Scouch from scouching.ca. Will was on the program a little ways back when we first started talking about the number 4 pick, but then Robyn's going to have a great interview coming up this Wednesday. So look out for that show to drop on Wednesday. You're not going to want to miss that one. The draft itself happens Friday and Saturday. And Robyn, it's a media event on Friday, right? Saturday, they kind of blow through, the rest of the rounds, but the NHL really makes a big event around Friday, especially around the first several draft picks. But the first round is a made-for-media TV event, and they treat it that way.
It really is, right? And then you see this whole event happen where you see all the top prospects kind of make their way over, and they're sitting in the crowd waiting to hear their name get called, and they get called up, and they get all that happen. And some of those in the later rounds also show up too, and they're still there, and it still does show up on TV, right? The rounds 2 through 7, they're just on NHL Network on as you said, right, they blow through it. Round 1, it lasts like 3 hours. And it's the same amount of time on the next day, on day 2, to go through rounds 2 through 7, just because the time frame to make a pick is actually much less. It's actually cut in a third, right? Instead of like 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is, you get like 2 minutes, maybe a minute to make your pick. Because at that point, you kind of already know. But if let's say someone steals your pick in the 2nd to 7th round, what we're going to see is maybe a timeout. But you only get so many timeouts, by the way, in the draft, because if you are a team, and we've seen this happen, and people hate it, right? Because we're trying to blow through draft coverage as well. But we see a team, I think it was Carolina a few years ago, where like every pick they made in like the 2nd and 3rd round, they called a timeout, and we're like, Carolina, dude, what are you doing? Let's get this over with.
Yeah. It can get to be a little much if you get to that point, but and you'll still see trades on day 2. Sometimes it only involves flipping picks, but sometimes there's players involved. So, it's always worth paying attention to day 2.
Remember, Utah made some pretty big trades in day 2 of the draft last year, right? Utah did some trades to acquire Mikhail Sergachev as well as John Marino in the second day of the draft.
That's right. And that's something we're definitely going to get into here is, do you trade the number 4 pick? But Robyn, before we get to that, because that is going to be a big discussion here, and we're going to try to give our once and for all answers as to whether or not we think number 4 should be on the move or not. Robyn, you mentioned, the draft, the draftees are in the crowd. They're with their family. They're both. And that's the way it was. But this year, it's the decentralized draft. What does that mean? It means that each team is at home in their own HQ, and the top, I don't know what, 40 or so, 50 or so players are probably going to be in LA, and it's going to be a much smaller environment. And already, Robyn, feedback's not great.
Oh, no, feedback is pretty poor. And you're right, it is a smaller, more intimate setting. This is going to be in the Peacock Theater, right? Which is it's still a theater. It's a pretty big theater, but it's a lot smaller than what we've seen in the past, right? Last year was this big, extravagant event at Sphere Las Vegas. Previous years, they were in NHL arenas, right? They were in big NHL arenas that would be sold out, and on the floor would be war rooms, right? The war rooms would be wide open in the floor. The teams would be sitting there, making their phone calls, making their picks. It'd go up to the stage, announce their pick, and do whatever it is to do that. And we're not going to see that this year. I mean, there still might be, let's say, a representative making a pick, and depending on the team, whatever. But now we're just going to see we're going to hear, like from my assumption, Tom, is we're just going to hear more of Gary Bettman, and I don't know how many people want that.
Yeah, I don't even know if Gary Bettman wants that necessarily. It does take a little bit of the juice away, I think, from the events. Well, and we'll see. I mean, they're going to try to find ways to cover it with the production and everything. But I think a lot of the teams are finding that it feels disconnected because you still have to bring your whole staff in somewhere, right? So they're either eating lunch in your conference room or at their table on the arena floor or Sphere. I think it'll be tough to ever top Sphere. That was really cool.
Honestly, even though I love the idea of the NHL draft going from city to city, and especially what it was before, we would go into NHL arena to NHL arena, right? Those are really cool again because it's wide open with the floor being the war room. Sphere Las Vegas was something special. It was a show. You could see so many things happening there. Plus, everyone, look, you could say what you will about Vegas. Maybe you love it or hate it. It is a party city. So many things happening in there on top of the draft, and why wouldn't you want to have the draft there again? If they decide to just have it perpetually there every year, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, and maybe they could actually bring back a real NHL award show while they're at it, but yeah. I won't hold my breath.
Oh my God, yeah.
So, Robyn, decentralized draft, I think you and I are both kind of in favor of doing away with this, and I think a lot of other folks are too. This could be the only year they do it. I have a feeling that this may be it. It's an experiment. It's not going great, although we'll know more after the weekend as to how it actually plays out. But like I say, so far feedback's kind of negative, and it might be a one and done.
Plus, yeah, I mean, it does. It is that because, like you said, there is, like you said, it's costing the same. The cost, or like they realizing it is the same because again, you have to bring your scouts, you have to bring your team, you got to do that. But and then there's also just the aspect of, and this is an aspect that I love, and maybe we'll still see it, but what we see is again the NFL draft, right? It's decentralized, right? It's been decentralized for a minute, but the top picks, the top draftees, prospects or whatever I should say, they get invited and they still get to go up and they hold their jersey up and whatever it is. It's kind of cool, but in NHL, what they've always done was they put on their jersey, put on the cap, and they pose with, let's say, either a huge representative from the team or with the owners and something like that. And like to me, that was always in a special moment that made the NHL draft unique. And I think some people, like at least fans, are realizing that. Maybe even some draftees are realizing that. And having that, even without it, the costs aside, that's a huge turnoff, and a lot what people might be turning away from. I was originally thinking, Tom, of going to Los Angeles this weekend to attend. I was thinking about that for the longest time. Then I was realizing to myself, is it even worth it? It's not as special as any of the years before.
And honestly, I mean, a lot of what was cool before was being fan-centric, whether it was moving from city to city or just the show around the one Sphere. like there was a lot going on that made it feel like a bit of a circus, which is not a bad thing. I don't say that in a bad way. It was entertaining, and you had to look in a million directions to see everything. I think that's good for fans.
Yeah, my favorite thing was always, and again, I've already said it, but I want to kind of reiterate it in a whole different kind of phrasing here, is when you saw the war room on the floor, right? You could see all the fans could actually watch the teams make calls. It was really cool having fans sometimes act as reporters, but like, I just saw Bill Armstrong on the phone with Doug Armstrong. What is happening? Ooh, or is a trade coming? And it's great. I loved it.
Yep. Now everything's cell phones, though. It's funny you said the NFL draft. I immediately thought of the old helmet phones that they used to use to phone in the pick, although that's going way back. So speaking of the pick, number 4 overall for the Utah Mammoth. Would you trade it? Would you keep it? Robyn and I will give you our final decisions on what we would do next. Today's show brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Well, crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, which gives you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. I've been traveling a lot lately, and I have been really enjoying snacking on the small no shells variety. Now, number one, especially if you're driving, I don't want to have to crack a shell, and I don't have to. The other thing is, too, I love the fact that you can go out and get the variety pack, because to me, variety is the spice of life. And so sometimes I want the jalapeno lime. Sometimes I just want roasted and salted. So I can get that. I have the convenience of toss it in a pocket, in a purse, in a backpack, whatever you're carrying with you. It's right there with you, and it's just grab and go ease, and I absolutely love it. Helps me get my protein on. So big fan, and can't recommend it enough. Whether you're running around, you might be dropping off the kids, or you're headed to a meeting at work, whatever it is. Wonderful Pistachios are the snack that works as hard as you do. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com for more. All right, Tom Callahan, Robyn Leonio here with you on Locked On Mammoth. Please subscribe to the show if you haven't already. It doesn't cost you a thing. And you can click the bell. That'll give you the notifications as to when the next show drops. If you're on the YouTube side, also hit that thumbs up for us. Helps us both with better interaction with the algorithm. Meanwhile, if you're on the audio side, you can pick us up anywhere you get your podcast. So thanks for being here. Want to say hi to all the everydayers, of course. You guys, we love you. Thank you so much. And for any new folks checking out the podcast as well. Here on Locked On Mammoth, it's a great time to be jumping in or jumping back in. Robyn, number 4 overall, first of all, kind of came as a bolt from the blue. The New York Islanders shot to the first overall pick, and then right in behind them, the Utah Mammoth were giddy when they jumped from number 14 to number 4.
It was an absolute huge thing, right? And I think, look, no one saw this kind of thing happening. I mean, we see jumps happen all the time, right? It happens pretty often, pretty more often than not. I think it came as still a little bit of a shock, mainly because last year was a very just chalked up, right? It was very just no changes at all, right? It was just your traditional 1 through 16 on the in the lottery, and it's like, okay, cool, like I guess whatever. Unless you were a San Jose Sharks fan, but you were excited for Macklin Celebrini, But this year, it's wild because it's a different kind of draft. It's not as deep as it was the previous drafts, but there's still a lot of conversation on players who could very well come in. A lot of the teams like Nashville, who was projected to get like the 3rd overall pick at the very least to them in their eyes, right? And other teams who were thinking of going 1 or 2, whatever. That all came out of the blue when teams from kind of further up of the chain just come up and steal the show. Some of them are upset. I was on the show. I was with Locked On Predators, right? I was invited on their show, and they were pretty upset about it. They're like, you guys stole our, you guys just stole the show. Like, we were supposed to be like 3rd overall. Now we just jumped to 5th, worst case scenario. I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Look, Nashville, I got news for you. 3rd versus 5th ain't turning that franchise around any faster. So there you go. But Robyn, that said, number 4, it's a bit of a gift, a surprise. But this is it. I'm asking you for the final time this week. You've had a lot of time to think about it, ruminate, decide, knock it around a bit. Are you keeping number 4 or are you trading it?
It's funny because this is the conversation I've had with multiple different hosts of other shows on Locked On NHL as well as Locked On Predators, right? Of what Utah will do with the 4th overall pick. And there's going to be a little bit of a caveat to my answer. But the answer is, in short, it's yes, but it's if, right? It's yes, but if a trade offer does come in for a top 6 forward. If that does not happen by the 3rd overall pick, by the time Utah's pick comes up at number 4, they're keeping it and they're making a pick. And they're making a good pick.
Okay, so you are saying they should trade it.
They should try. They should try. Yes. I think that's the biggest that's how I'm phrasing it, is they should absolutely try and trade this pick, because this team is really close to becoming something special. And I think they are a top 6 forward away from making a pretty huge leap to the next phase. And that's what it will take to trade that pick.
So I agree. I would trade number 4 if it brings back something like Tage Thompson. And it's funny because I think some of the comments we've seen over the past week, a lot of people are saying, well, Michelli, which I think is going to happen anyway, and package some picks off to Buffalo and, a 3rd, a 2nd, a 4th, and Buffalo should just take that. Well, I think the days, it's going to be different now because Buffalo's having a little bit of a regime change. Kevin Adams is still there, but Jarmo Kekalainen is coming in. He's not a dummy. But I do think Buffalo and other teams like Buffalo's just the mule that I continue to harp on, but other teams like Buffalo, Robyn, that have talented players and one of 2 situations, either cap problems or are so far removed from being able to win that they might have a talented player they can afford to let go of now because they're going to build to get good in 5 years. I think Utah is building to get good now. And that's why I think a player like Tage Thompson for a 4th pick and some other various and sundry elements to that, but that would be the guts of it. That makes sense. However, here's the thing for Utah. While that pick does help them down the road, this pick does not splash in until, 3, 4, maybe 5 years down the road, unless you get super lucky. And I think, to me, Robyn, that says making that pick is not the worst thing in the world, but I honestly don't think it is what benefits Utah most on the runway they want to be on. That's why I think I lean more towards trading it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have had so many people say, don't trade the pick because you're going to get a good pick. Yes, there are some really good picks like James Higgins, Porter Martone, and a few others. Like, it's like there are some good names. And honestly, I think if Utah keeps them, I want to hear one of their, really either one of those 2 names, Martone or Higgins, be called by Utah. But like I
maybe
said,
Frondell is there.
Maybe Frondell gets there. Yeah. Or I would be happy if Desnoyers too. But again, the point being made is that this team is kind of in that next phase. And you're right. This was a question that was asked to me, on ESPN 700 in Salt Lake, is like, when would a player like this be, when would we see them in a Mammoth jersey? And I'm like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Like, one, this is not a deeper draft as previous years, but 2, unless we're talking a generational talent like a Macklin Celebrini or Connor Bedard, Austin Matthews, or Connor McDavid, or I can go far back and name a lot of other 1st overall, 2nd overall, 3rd overall picks who have made instant impacts. Unless we're talking about generational talents like that, these players aren't going to be around for at the very least 2-3 years, but probably 4 to 5. They obviously weren't ready for that answer on the radio show, and I was like, "But I'm being honest with you.
It's not the NBA.
It's not the NBA, right? It's not the NBA, and it's not the NFL. Some NFL players do that too. And again, it's a little bit different than the NFL, but the NBA is different, right? The NBA, those players do make an instant impact pretty quickly, right? Because it is smaller, right? The NBA is only a 2-round draft. I think that's kind of what makes it a little bit different too. But I think still, because of where Utah's at in their rebuild, and the point of I shouldn't even say rebuild at this point, but in their it is a rebuild because they were in a rebuild. But they're kind of on that emergence period. They want to go in. They want to get into a playoff spot. They want to be competing for the playoffs for the next few years. To do that, they need to kind of bring in something that can help them now. And they have the asset, a huge asset. People want that 4th overall pick because they are rebuilding. They want something that can help them in 4 to 5 years.
Exactly. All right, a reminder, Will Scouch is joining the program Wednesday. Robyn is going to have a great interview with Will coming up here. You're not going to want to miss that. Draft is Friday and Saturday. So let's say that Utah is unable to trade that number 4 pick or just doesn't want to. Robyn, where are they going? We're going to talk about that next. All right, back here on Locked On Mammoth. Tom Callahan alongside Robyn Leonio. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We really do appreciate you being here and your support of Locked On Mammoth, our everydayers, the longtime listeners, the longtime viewers, plus the new folks coming on board now. It's a great time to jump on board this Mammoth bandwagon, which is going to be pretty fantastic. All right, Robyn, into the draft. The moment of truth hits. Bill Armstrong didn't hear what he wanted to hear as far as acquiring a player. So now the number 4 pick is on the clock, and Utah is going to make that pick. I think one of the biggest questions we have to ask is, will it be best player available, or will Bill Armstrong kind of follow the archetype, I guess, of player that he wants, and maybe will that affect the pick?
It really is an interesting debate, right? Because I feel like that is, we've seen a tale of 2 Bill Armstrongs, right? We've seen some drafts where he will pick best overall without a doubt, even though they are smaller than what he expects and not as physical, but they are highly, highly skilled. But we have seen other drafts, and that's so that draft I'm talking about as an example is 2022 when they drafted Logan Cooley. It made sense. But then, the later draft picks in the first round, they picked Geeky and Lamoureux, who did fit that mold, by the way. But next year, 2023, they picked Dmitry Shemashev and Daniel Boot, who easily fit that mold, right? Big, right, physical, but still highly skilled. But that's the true Bill Armstrong type. So we're seeing different sides here. But to me, Tom, I think there's a good chance that the two can be the same, right? The two can be the same going in. I think James Higgins, if he is available, is the best overall that's available. And I think he should get picked. I think best of it. Then this is the short answer. Best overall should be picked. However, I will not be upset because I think you're really close. They're really close in skill set, and it is Bill Armstrong's type. Porter Martone is a very good choice for the Utah Hockey Club or Utah Mammoth. Oh my God, I said that for the Utah Mammoth.
Hey, you know what? Old habits die hard. It's okay,
right?
It happens. Exactly. So yes, we've been calling the UHC for so long, but you know what? I understand where you're coming from, Robyn, and Denoye keeps coming up. I don't know if Frondell's going to be there or not. I feel like Frondell's going to Chicago, but honestly, if that doesn't happen, maybe that's part of your consideration. But here's the thing: if you feel, and this is what would help me decide. Now, I'm always a best available player, but sometimes you may feel, or your staff may be split. about best available could be player A and player B. In that case, I think you then also have to consider position. And if it's a forward anyway, which I think we're in agreement it will be, if it's a
Yes.
forward anyway, I want a guy who plays center. You can always move a center to wing. It is really hard to move a wing to center. So I think I draft for depth up the middle, best available player. And the thing is, we keep saying today's NHL. We've seen size doesn't always matter. Size with skill matters. But if you have skill, you don't need to be 6'5" if you are exceptionally skilled. But I think if you have the chance to add bulk up the middle, intelligence, and you can fill that center position, just because you could go out and trade for a top center right now, a 1C, go out and trade for a 1C. I still would not be mad if they drafted a potential 1C. You can never have too many centers.
No, you can't. Again, because you're right. They can, you can easily move, some of these players and slide them over to a wing because you can make that change, right? But he said being in the opposite, I actually do. And to be honest, I think that there is a lot of benefit in having a center slide over to the wing because they kind of still understand and have that defensive mindset. The center is your third forward as well as your third defenseman, essentially, because they kind of do two sides of the coin most of the time in an ideal world. So yes, a center should be picked. And if we're looking between the two that I mentioned, James Higgins and Porter Martone. Porter Martone mainly plays on the wing. James Higgins is the center. He is a little bit smaller, but again, he is also really skilled. And in the two draft experts we've talked to, and Will Skelch, and again, I am going to be able to talk to him again in tomorrow's episode, but also as well as with Tony Ferrari, is they both have an agreement that there's so much excitement around a player like James Higgins, and I think he really should be the player that gets picked if Utah doesn't trade and they don't do that. Then Tom, I see in a tweet from Brogan Houston, who is one of the beat writers for the Utah, covering the Utah Mammoth, saying that he's hearing that Porter Martone is going on a skate session with Barrett Hayton.
Okay. And I mean, all of these, you can do your recon in various ways, I guess, right? There's nothing to say that two guys can't skate together in the summer.
Yeah, I know. So, again, it could be blowing smoke one way. I mean, it's like smoke and mirrors and whatever. But if you want to be that person, if you want to be the tinfoil hat guy, you could really think, oh wait, maybe Martone really wants to play for Utah. And maybe he's kind of just doing that. Maybe he wants to get a feel for the team he might play for.
There's a lot of ways we could read that, isn't there? And that's
there's so many ways.
Fun,
right? There is so many ways, but I mean, I would be happy with either of those two picks. Again, I would also be happy with Desnoyers. I think that'd still be a good pick either way. But to me, I really think it would be between James Higgins or Porter Martone.
My only question with Desnoyers is, can he handle the weight of the NHL game through a full 82-game schedule? Probably, with time and proper development, I think yes. The skill is undeniable. And, the other thing they always say, you can't teach size. I mean, you might be tempted to reach for the 6'5" guy over the 5'9" guy or even the 6-foot guy, but that's not always the best move. But again, you look at Florida, and Robyn, we can revisit our superstar versus star player argument, but Florida just won 2 straight Stanley Cups with no real superstars. They did it by committee. No. They did it by being deep and by getting good goaltending at the right time, by playing good defense at the right time, and by being so hard to play against. And you don't
By the way, quick side note on that.
Okay.
So, and again, this is something that I want to explore with you later this week, Tom. But just to get people excited as a conversation we'll have later this week, hey, maybe we'll talk about the rumors being swirled around that Brad Marchand is being linked to the Utah Mammoth.
He wants 4 years is what's on the street. We'll talk about it later. We'll talk about it later. But yes, we can definitely get into that. So there's plenty of thoughts that we have, and I'm sure you have a lot of thoughts as well. Please drop them down in the comments or reach out to us on social media with your thoughts. Would you trade the number 4 pick? Would you make the pick? What would you accept for number 4? Who would you pick? Let us know. Robyn, where can they let us know what they think?
You can let us know what you think literally anywhere on social media, also in the YouTube comments. But on social media, we are at Locked On Mammoth, at Locked On Mammoth. You can find us there. You can find me personally on Twitter. I'm mostly active there, Twitter/X, whatever you do want to call it. I really don't care. At Robyn_Leano.
And I am at Tom Talks on Blue Sky, at Callahan on air on the Twitter side. And you know what? Looking forward to this week. It's going to be an awful lot of fun. It's going to be a great draft week. Plenty more action, I'm sure, leading into the draft itself and then the weekend of the draft. Plus, then we got free agency coming right up after it. So keep it tuned right here. It's going to be an exciting week here on Locked On Mammoth.